Welcome to our event called Ask Me Anything About Climate Change in Greeley. That's sponsored by Cooler. Cooler is a National Science Foundation funded initiative aimed at developing a learning ecosystem in northern Colorado to strengthen climate change resilience. My name's Kyle Thoutt. I'm an active member in Cooler as well as the Earth and Science Department at UNC. Today we have Maureen. Maureen brings a wealth of experience in, I don't know what you would want to call it, single-use plastics or waste streams or
Yeah, solid waste.
solid waste.
And I know that sounds really appetizing, but yeah, that's what it's falls under that category.
Well, Maureen, I want to thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about something I'm passionate about, solid waste. It's in anyone, everyone.
So, something that we like to ask all of our guests to kind of get the ball rolling is, can you describe how your work connects with climate change?
Yeah, it is intricately connected. So, um, first of all, we will be talking about one small aspect of solid waste, which is SUPs. And SUPs are, do you know, Kyle?
Single-use plastics.
Yes. So it's not the plastic that is in your glasses. It's not the plastic that is in your phone. This is something that you use for a minute or seconds and then you throw it away. So from the extraction of creating those SUPs, which is fracked fuel these days. Mostly it is fracked fuel from the extraction to the manufacturing of it, to the brief usage of it, to the transporting of it for the brief usage and the transporting of it, to the disposal of it. It's hugely linked to climate change. If plastic were a country, it would be the world's fifth largest contributor to climate change. I think this is something people just don't even realize.
So Maureen, what inspired you to start FoCo Trash Mob, and how has the organization evolved since its creation?
Yeah, so the thing that inspired it was this. And this is a clamshell. I'm holding up a clamshell, and after the bazillionth person came at me pointing to the chasing arrow and said, "What do you mean this isn't recyclable?" It says so right here when I was at the recycling center in the landfill and telling them this is not recyclable, please don't put it in the recycling bin. They would come running after me, pointing at the chasing arrows. So I realized that the messaging was not getting through to people. People did not understand what the recycling symbol meant on plastics. It's very obvious when it's on an aluminum can. You throw that away and there it's not on an aluminum can because hopefully people know those things are recyclable. So that's what started me thinking that I needed to find a way to make this to have people understand about what their contribution is to the subs plastic pollution crisis and to want to do something about it. So the original idea was along the lines of a flash mob. And if anybody remembers what a flash mob was, and they still do them, um, just not during COVID, it is highly choreographed and you find yourself just continuing to watch. You don't understand what's going on, how these people are appearing, and they all know the dance steps. So I thought if we could have a flash mob with an environmental message and action attached to it, so the dancers would be wearing plastic or juggling it, or I don't know what they would be doing, but somehow plastic would be a part of it. There would be no speaking. People would be going, "What's ooh, they're good dancers, but why is the plastic?" And then they would put the plastic in a box at the end, and it would say return to offender, and then it would link to an action that you could do, that has to do with some of the things we do when we nudge corporations. So that video never got made, and we still hope it might. But so we did have to evolve. The group did evolve into doing three things. And one is we educate the public around subs pollution, like I'm doing right now. And we have many talks that we give and on different topics. And then two is we encourage legislation where we can. And we are currently encouraging some legislation in Fort Collins. And then the third thing we do is nudge corporations to stop their suppy ways.
So the legislation you're trying to get passed in Fort Collins, can you speak a little bit more about that?
So that would be a ban on sup water bottles that are under a gallon. Um, we know that the cities of Telluride, Breckenridge, and Frisco have already implemented these bans. There are 3 or 4 towns now in California that have done them, and a few on the East Coast. So this is something that's um, applicable to a town like the ones I mentioned, where the water quality is really good. We have some of the best water in the nation. I would not be suggesting anybody in Flint, Michigan do this. So it's a way to just send a strong message. We understand how they did it in these towns that are actually tourist towns by implementing refill stations and educating the public, even people who are coming through, short visits. They have
Hmm.
an app and a map where you can find all the refill stations. So, and they've done other things as well, but we're following their guide of how they did it, except that their city councils were the groups that suggested that the city do it. And for us, it's a little bit reversed, but we've had a lot of good feedback, and we even got you know, just a lot of heads nodding yes so far. A lot of signatures, about 500 signatures from people in Fort Collins saying that they would support this.
Um, so that kind of leads me into my next question here. What are going to be some of the main goals for your FoCo Trash Mob, and how do you measure success?
Yeah. Success has been interesting. So I would call it a learning curve when to measure the success. So I want to answer that one first. When we first started, we really didn't know what we were doing. And so, for example, the first company that we targeted to do a send back, and they're called sendbacks, takebacks. Um, you can call them plastic attacks and trash mobs. We chose Dart. Dart is the major producer of EPS, which is expanded polystyrene, known as styrofoam.
Mm.
And we made the mistake of sending their styrofoam back to them without, we couldn't suggest like you should use a different product because that's what they make. So so we're kind of stumbling around trying to figure out how to communicate with these companies. And the cool thing is that this was during COVID, and they finally wrote us back when they were back in the office, which was months later, and they sent us a picture of all the stuff we sent, and they were like, "Oh, we want you to know we're doing all this stuff to, recycle our styrofoam, and we're very, earth friendly and sustainable, and we recycled the stuff you sent us." And I know because I worked in waste reduction and recycling for 12 years, they didn't recycle it. You cannot really recycle post-consumer EPS. You need a densifier to do that. And one of the few densifiers in our state is in Boulder, and they would only recycle block styrofoam, not like your coffee cup.
Hmm.
So the biggest success we've had so far was with Starbucks. And we were thrilled after months of communicating with them, going back and forth with their CEO, um, numerous calls to the customer service. We had been asking them for 2 requests. We said, Starbucks, you give us a dime when we bring our personal cup. It's not really a motivator. Could you give your loyalty customers stars?
Hmm.
So that was our first request. And the second one was, while you're doing that, could you charge customers for the SUP? And then back and forth. And we were doing just hearing back from them, other sustainability leaders in Starbucks at the time. So then on Earth Day, we got an email. Well, I did because I'm a loyalty customer. Nobody else on my team will go to Starbucks. But so everybody who's a loyalty customer got an email on Earth Day and it said, Starbucks is giving you 25 stars for bringing your personal cup. I was shocked because I thought they'd give us maybe 5 stars.
Hmm.
25 stars is like giving me $1 for bringing my personal cup. It's more stars than you get for like, you ordered a coffee. You would get
Right.
maybe, yeah, 10 stars, 6 stars. So it's a really big deal. And we thought, oh, okay, this is for Earth Day. But they kept doing it. And everywhere in the United States, if you're a loyalty customer, you get 25 stars for bringing your reusable cup. So
Hmm.
that was a huge deal. And we were like, yay, that's cool. Of course, they're not going to say, FoCo Trash Mob, thank you for, so that's the other part of our success is we will probably never have someone say, because of the pressure that you put on us, we did this. Um,
Hmm.
so we have to understand that. And the other thing we need to understand is that they're not going to charge the customer for the SUP. But if they did, my belief is that a carrot and a stick is how you're going to change behavior. Even though we're proposing a bottle ban, I do feel like if the if we could incentivize the good behavior, bringing your reusable,
Hmm.
disincentivize the bad behavior by charging you for it, that would take care of getting rid of a lot of SUPs because people would not want that stick and they would be much more motivated to, buy the carrot.
Right.
I'll tell you about one other story with the no waste event bin. Um, so we have a bin where you can just kind of rent it and it's very cheap. It's like $5 and it
Hmm.
has enough cups and bowls and everything for 25 people. So it's more hassle for you, right? It's more of a hassle. Like if you just go buy the subs and you just throw them away. um, so I felt like, okay, how can I incentivize this? Well, let's say you take this bin and you're going to have an event that you're catering.
Hmm.
So I called Olive Garden and I said, I just want to know when I cater from you, um, would you give me a discount if I don't require all the single-use items? Well, she said, well, we just kind of give them. We absorb that cost.
Right.
And they don't. You know that they don't. It is cheap. It is cheap. And that's because again, the real costs involved with all this plastic is not being taken into consideration. And when I asked that manager at Olive Garden, the second question, which was, um, would you consider charging people for the single use items and
Hmm.
giving us a discount? So the best she could come up with was, well, we can comp your delivery. So I thought, okay, that's something. She did not address charging customers for those. And I think, again, if that were the case, um, a no waste event bin would be probably taking off. If people said, okay, I got to pay $10 or $5 or whatever it is, I may as well use these reusables.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of these environmental issues have to do with people not thinking, um, as well as our addiction to the culture of convenience. And I believe we have that culture of convenience because we feel we are entitled to it. And that
Yeah.
is the bottom line problem.
Um, what do you think are some of the most common misconceptions about recycling and waste reduction?
Yeah, the common misconception is, again, surrounding SUPs. So the chemical industry, it's been proven, they're on tape saying it. We have written testimonies where they understood that these items they were making were not recyclable, but they told everybody, they marketed them as being recyclable. They had advertising campaigns that said they were recyclable. And so people got so confused, and they went from early on when I started working at the landfill. And again, I was always the boots on the ground. I was not sitting up in an office somewhere. Um, People were like, recycle everything. And oh, the recycling fairy is going to just take it all and recycle it. And now people are skeptical and they're saying none of it gets recycled. And I heard if you put the wrong thing in the truck, the whole thing goes to the landfill, so they just have all these misconceptions about what's recyclable and what's not because of that initial misinformation,
Hmm.
telling them that this was fine and it's all recyclable. So now you'll get the guy who puts the aluminum can in the trash and puts his single-use Starbucks plastic in the recycle bin. And if people could be again incentivized to uh, take the tour of the landfill or the recycling center. It's an hour of your time, or have us, we can do it virtually. If people would just spend that hour to understand what happens to their recyclables, where they go, how they get recycled, why some things aren't, why some things are,
Hmm.
that educational component is where we could, address a lot of these problems. But if people don't care, I should say people don't care, then, you know, they don't really care about knowing it. It goes away.
Right.
So that's the problem with this field of waste reduction.
How do you feel about the recycling industry here in America, or lack thereof?
Well, that's yeah, I'm not sure how to begin that one because a lot of first world countries have MRFs, and a MRF is a material recovery facility, and it's highly mechanized. So third world countries don't tend to have these. They tend to have scavengers.
Hmm.
In our MRFs, there are very few humans working there. It's robots and optic sorters and magnets and eddy currents and miles of conveyor belts. And you have a few people usually trying to get contaminants off the belt. So those sorting facilities have to then bale whatever it is that they've just sorted and find an end market. And if you don't have an end market for your product, it's just going to sit there and you're
Hmm.
not going to make any money from it. So that for me, the problem was when and because we have, let's just say, one or two main players, um, waste management being one of them,
Hmm.
the the implementation of pay as you throw, and which is like throw you put everything in your single stream, just all goes together, created the MRFs, helped create the MRFs. Once the MRFs are up, they're hungry and you got to feed them.
Hmm.
So that was the problem in my book because that produces a lot of contamination. You can't have paper in there when somebody just threw a bottle of, it could have had some liquid in it or food on it or all kinds of. So you've now just degraded your paper that had value before you put all this other crap in. Um, so that's kind of how I view it is if we could go back to source separating, which requires more effort on the the person's part, right? All of
Hmm.
us, if we could source separate like they do in Europe, we would have a cleaner stream and then we would have more end markets and we would have more people interested in these resources that we are burying in landfills. But if you look at it this way, Kyle, if they're going to charge you to to bury our waste, in my opinion, that is a charge that should be a high charge. If it's something that you could reuse, repurpose, recycle,
Hmm.
I feel like that's what you should do. But it's our landfill for decades was the cheapest landfill around. People were coming from Wyoming and everywhere to our Larimer County landfill. And I was up there doing a tour one time with a school bus full of kids, and we saw a truck, just some guy had a flatbed truck, came up, had a perfectly good sofa, matching chair, and two end tables. We were looking to see if is there a giant stain on them, or they looked perfectly fine getting thrown out and buried. So in my mind, that person should be charged to do that, and that should be free if he could, if there was a place where they would refurbish it, if it was something was wrong with it, and then get it back into the stream, into the sell it to somebody. So I have kind of an opposite view of what we should be charging to bury our resources. And I think we should be charging a lot to do that. And we should be incentivizing people, like I said. And we don't even have a repair shop anymore. I don't know about Greeley, but we had one
Oh
in
no,
none. Yeah.
the right to repair, even though there was all those court trials about it, the majority of repair shops are gone, and
Yep.
I
And it's a skill
even
that's gone too.
yeah,
So, you
yeah.
know, yeah, we
I
had
mean, there's a
one.
lot of skills that are gone nowadays, which is really,
Correct.
really unfortunate.
Yeah, and kind of scary.
So, Maureen, what are some hopes for the future of waste reduction and sustainability efforts, both locally and on a larger scale?
I tend to not be a very hopeful person, Kyle. So you're asking. Um, uh, I can see some things happening. But especially now, legislation is going to be tougher. Um, you know, I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of uh hope that things will get better other than um I know this years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago when we were tabling and people would come up. We try to get people to come to the table so we could tell them about recycling.
Mhm.
And they just weren't really interested. It's just what it was like, it just goes away. What's the problem? And now when we tabled the last event at Open Streets in Fort Collins, people
Mhm.
were crossing the street to talk to us because we had hashtag or whatever, break free from plastic, which is we're core members of that global group. People were crossing the street to talk to us and say, what can we do? So there's now more information out there about plastics being in our bodies, in our brains, in our, plastics, microplastics killing this and that. So I think just the more that can get out there,
Mhm.
um, the more visual pictures of marine life being choked by plastic, rivers being contaminated in third world countries. So the more that is out there, then we ourselves will be able to make the change and not wait for to legislate it.
So I know that you and Ranga also really want to talk about your presentations. So these last two questions, of your 7 presentations that your team offers, which one do you feel resonates the most with audiences and why?
So each one is kind of its own little niche. And I feel like if so there I would say all depending on what you want to know. So I'm just going to tout a little bit of what they are. Um, so SUPs 101 is will walk you through what I mentioned earlier. How does this work? The extraction of it, the manufacturing of it. It just kind of walks you through what is it? How do we get it? Why isn't it recycled? What happens to it when it's recycled? So it's kind of an overview of SUPs and a little bit of the history of it and everything. FoCo Trash Mob and SUPs 101 is very similar, except we tell you about our group and what we do, and we go into a little bit more detail about that. The Sunback campaign success, or if you remember Borat, great success. Um, we kind of tongue in cheek tell you our road, our road to nowhere, just how we did all these things and what we learned. And then Zero Waste 101, that's Renga's thing. He's a true advisor for zero waste businesses. So that's his thing. And um, what's recyclable in NoCo, not SUPs. That is team member Kim and I give that. And it's basically the same tour that we used to give when we worked at the recycling center. It's kind of walks you through those bins that are out there that are also at the Larimer County landfill. What's recyclable and what happens to it here in NoCo. And the No Waste Event Bin Party Kit Network um, tells you how to create one, how we created ours, how we found the global party kit network started in the UK. They just celebrated keeping 1 million SUPs out of being produced. Um, and we're a part of that organization, very proud to be a part of it. It's very cool. And then the SUPs water bottle ban will tell you why we decided to do it, how we're doing it, how these other cities did it, how people can help us um, make that happen. So those are the talks that we give. And um, also just FYI, the FoCo Trash Mob and SUPS 101, I actually gave that to middle schoolers through a Nat Geo sponsored program called um, Learning by the Seat of Your Pants. Anyway, um, and they asked the most intelligent questions. I was kind of shocked after I gave that talk. So a lot of these talks are great for schools of most ages, probably not elementary school, but middle school, high school, college. Um, so if this is an interest of people's, which I understand that trash goes away, so we don't need to worry about it. But if you want to know where away is, we're your group.
Okay. Well, that actually is going to lead me on to the last one here, um, before we start wrapping things up. And that's going to be, how do people get in contact with you if they want to get involved?
Yeah, just have please email FoCo Trash Mob at gmail.com. We have a website that is under construction. We have a very small budget of a grant that we recently got. Um, we are 6 volunteers and we need more people to do different things. We are also a part of volunteer match, so we've gotten a few volunteers through that. Today we are talking to Volunteers of America, so you'd be able to volunteer with us through those two organizations and get credit on one hand, or um, just have the insurance that Volunteers of America offers. Um, and I just want to say, I know our name is Haha FoCo Trash Mob, but we are serious. We are core members of the global group Break Free from Plastic. We are affiliates of Beyond Plastics. Beyond Plastics, I cannot sing enough praises about because they have given us a free Zoom account, a free Action Network account. We can Zoom with them and they'll walk us through things and strategies and toolkits. We are members. We are 5 Gyre ambassadors. We are recent members of Plastic Pollution Coalition, whose spokesperson is the dude. If anybody saw the Big Lebowski, Jeff Bridges. There's just a lot of movement on the part of these different groups nationally and globally that are working on this issue. And that's what we want to be as a part of that. We don't want to be our separate thing. We want to be working with these other groups where we can be stronger.
So, again, I want to thank you, Maureen, for being here with us today. And if you're listening, I would like you to keep an eye out for our upcoming AMA event with Lorraine from the student cohort of Cooler. Um, that should happen sometime between December 18th and December 20th. So just keep an eye out for that. And again, thank you, Maureen, for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Have a
Yeah,
wonderful day.
you too.